I have to hit continue. Wait a second.
Okay, and we are live. I'm just going to wait a few moments and welcome people into our virtual salon. Hello, Benjamin, watching in Germany.
Oh, hello, Benjamin, my dear. So good to see you here.
Yes, and Doug Grieve watching, Barbara Boyd Dons watching, Slim Buck. Okay, it is almost right at 12 noon. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Hollywood Kitchen. I am a huge Edith Head fan, and so this is so special. Miss Head won 8 Academy Awards, and I can think of no better way to kick off Oscar month and Women's History Month than with her. She's won more Academy Awards than any other woman in Hollywood and was nominated 34 times.
35 times, Carrie. Everyone counts, doesn't it, dear?
You're right, Miss Head. You are correct.
Yeah, you know, people always ask me about my longevity, and I tell them the key to longevity in any business is hard work. When I was at Paramount, I worked 6 days a week, 15 hours a day for 44 years. That adds up to, I was never very good at math. Let's just say I learned to do everything. And if you don't do everything in Hollywood, you are not Hollywood. People say to me, what makes you different from other designers? I tell them I'm not different. I'm just the best. I hate modesty, don't you, Carrie, dear? Now, I always think food is much more fun than fashion any day. So what are you going to prepare today?
Well, today we are making your recipe for chicken Casa Ladera. And I'd love to talk to you about where this recipe originated and how did it get its name?
Well, that's a very good question. There was a book called The Celebrity Cookbook that my good friend Dinah Shore put together. And she wrote the foreword for it. It was to benefit a wonderful women's organization called Women For. Not women against, but women for. It was nonpartisan. And she asked some of her most intimate friends, Cary Grant, Bob Hope, Bob Cummings, myself, Phyllis Diller, to provide recipes. So I took one of my most famous recipes, chicken Casa Ladera. And it got its name because of the house where my husband and I live, up at Coldwater Canyon, 1700 Coldwater Canyon. If anyone's in the neighborhood, stop by. It's called House on the Hill, Casa Ladera. You can see the recipe in here also, and the many variations of it. Bill, it was also in the business. He was a scenic designer. When he retired, he was very happy to stay at home and paint and be the architect that he was trained for. And he used to tease that our Beverly Hills hacienda was surrounded by a picket fence made of nothing but Oscars. His too, and my 8. So look at you with your chicken breast there, dear.
Yes, we are going to use chicken breast for this, and I'm also cooking for one. So what we're going to do, I've been stirring the butter up over the heat. First off, we've cut these in pieces, as you say to do.
Yes.
We're going to season with salt, pepper, and paprika. So I'm going to do
paprika
that right
adds a nice spice to it, and I like things spicy.
That's right. Paprika seems to be a very popular ingredient in a lot of these classic recipes. For good reason.
For very good reason. They're classic because the ingredients are universal and timeless.
And never go out of style.
That's absolutely right.
All right, so it says to saute in butter until golden brown. So we're gonna work on doing that. Hopefully my smoke alarm will not go off. Fingers.
You have to be very careful that you don't burn the butter.
That's right, that's right.
I have to say, you look just adorable today. That's a very cute ensemble, and it's perfect with the apron. You know what I always say, you can have and be anything you want in life as long as you dress for it, and you are dressed as an adorable chef today.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that's extra special compliment coming from you.
I'll be the head chef, and you'll be my sous chef.
I would be honored to do so.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Right. We're going to saute this in the butter until golden brown. It shouldn't take too long here.
Not too long.
And tell me, while I'm doing this, about what kind of parties you would host at Casa Ladera.
Well, it's interesting because I'm sure you would agree, I'm a very good designer, but I'm an even better cook. I love being a cook. And, you know, parties have changed. A recipe like this would be for a formal dinner. Things have gotten much more relaxed. I'm not saying we should use paper plates or paper napkins and, God forbid, TV dinners, but with the work schedule we women have today, we shouldn't be struggling for 3 days beforehand so that we can have a very active and engaging party and actually enjoy our party. Now, I could not do my type of entertaining if it wasn't for my wonderful Myrtle Tyson. Oh, she's been with me for longer than I can remember, and she was with my mother before that. Mrs. Tyson is the type of woman who does everything superbly. And she would say to me, Miss Head, don't fret. You can design a beautiful dress. I'm sure you can design a beautiful party. And I thought she's exactly right. It must be done with style and with the minimum amount of effort, perfect ingredients, superbly cooked, and pizzazz. Now, as you know, in our California weather, we can do outdoor parties, and I have a canteen up at the house. We live on 5 acres, so there's plenty of room, but I like to keep my parties at maybe 12 guests. And oftentimes, especially in the fall, when it's crisp outside in our California weather and people are outside playing tennis or golf or going to a football game or a polo match, I love to call them and say, well, why don't you drop over after the game and we'll have a party picnic up at Casa Ladera. So what I would do, I would prepare my very famous margaritas. The key to that, always use fresh lime and the best tequila that you can afford. And I'd serve just a simple hors d'oeuvre, little miniature empanadas. I'd fill these little crescent turnovers with my chili con carne. Then I would serve a soup, like my frijoli soup. And then the guests would gather around a beautiful outdoor dining table. My husband, Bill, actually made it from a eucalyptus tree that we had to clear on the property. And then for the main course, I would take a basket. Each guest, and I'd like to limit it to 12, each guest would have their own basket with a beautiful napkin in it, perhaps their own individual glazed Cornish game hen, buttered baguette. I would skewer fresh vegetables, and it would be self-contained. And for dessert, Mrs. Tyson and I, we would make these little pilettes, empty pie shells. And I'd set up a beautiful display of fillings, a chocolate mousse, my very famous lemon orange custard, strawberries, and everybody could fill their pie to their heart's content with a dollop of whipped cream. But also what's very important at dinner parties, or any party for that matter, is the type of guest you invite. And they should be as varied as the ingredients in your recipe, because Conversation adds to any party. People should have new ideas, make new friends from every walk of life. My goal is when someone leaves, a guest leaves my party, their tummies and their minds are filled with new and wonderful things, and they leave with a marvelous sense of contentment.
I think that's wonderful, Edith. I want to tell you, by the way, the chicken looks so good right now. Let me hold it up to the...
Let me see, dear. Oh, doesn't that paprika, that adds a lovely color to it?
Oh, it sure does. So
you have sauteed it perfectly, Carrie.
What I'm going to do right now is remove the chicken and make the sauce. And then we'll get into the deep dive all about your fashion and your incredible, extraordinary career. All right, so I'm putting the chicken on the plate for right now.
Okay, dear.
Look how delicious and yummy this looks.
Yeah, I know.
Really good.
If I didn't have a fitting in a few hours, I would be right over there to enjoy it with you.
Yes. Okay, let's see. In pan, saute mushrooms. It didn't say to chop them or not. So what I did is a bunch of them I chopped, and a few of them I just left as they came in the box. So got the mushrooms here.
Okay. Sometimes I do slice them if you like. So
okay.
I think our guests can certainly adapt it to whatever your preference is.
Okay. So we've got mushrooms. We're gonna add flour, and again, I'm doing this just kind of for one here. So we're gonna add the flour.
The butter, that will thicken everything.
The butter. We're gonna add some chicken stock.
And sometimes it's nice if people want to make fresh chicken stock, you can always do that. But for the ease of convenience, that works just fine.
And we've got black olives here as well.
Love black olives.
And then we have chives. So it says cook for 5 minutes. So I'm going to set my timer here for a second, and we will cook this for 5 minutes. And when the timer goes off, we'll see how it's doing.
Okay, wonderful.
Yes.
Stir it through. Stir it. Yeah, so the flour doesn't lump there. Make
yes,
sure
that is very important.
Making a beautiful. Yes, that's good with the butter and all. Let me see.
I think it's a little bit more butter.
Yeah.
But well,
I don't think you can ever use too much butter.
That's all right. While I'm doing this, Edith, let's go ahead and talk, if you're okay with that, about your incredible career. So how did you get started in costume design?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. Well, it really was a boys' club when I came in. After all, it was 1923. Women had just recently got the vote. Now, I was teaching French at the very exclusive Hollywood School for Girls when suddenly my duties were expanded to include the teaching of an art class. I think there was an assumption that if you spoke French, you could paint. Well, I knew next to nothing about it, so I enrolled in an art class. And during my summer holiday, I needed money. I was looking through the classifieds. I saw an ad, wanted sketch artist. Work for Cecil B. DeMille, write Howard Greer for appointment. Now I knew Howard Greer was the chief designer at Paramount. His name was synonymous with Hollywood glamour. Plus, I had a DeMille connection. His daughters, Catherine and Cecilia, were my pupils, but I never in my wildest dreams ever imagined working for Mr. DeMille. The ad said the pay was $50 a week, double my teaching salary. So much for my master's degree from Stanford. Now, I have a theory that once you have taught, you can do anything. Do we have any teachers out there? I'm sure you would agree.
I agree with that, sure.
I knew I could do the job, Carrie, but I needed a portfolio. All I could draw were oceans. I decided to borrow sketches from my classmates. So I had interior design, magazine illustration, landscape. Let me tell you, I had the most fantastic assortment. Mr. Greer said he had never seen so much talent in any one portfolio. People would say, oh, didn't you feel guilty, Miss Head? And it's, you know, when you're very young, you have no sense of morality, I guess. Never occurred to me that it was dishonest. I thought it was quite humorous to put the borrowed sketches into the portfolio. So did Mr. Gloria. I got the job. Now, I started as a sketcher, and well, I dressed for the part. I transformed myself from a proper school teacher into a bohemian artiste. Oh, I wore a smock and a beret. I had black bangs and dark glasses. Oh, yes, even that. I looked like a designer, but all I was doing was handing pins to seamstresses. Things really changed when Travis Banton, you know Travis Banton, joined the career. And they shared the design duties at Paramount. They sort of, oh, what would the word be? They sort of adopted me. After all, I wasn't a threat to them. I was a woman. Plus, I couldn't even draw. But it was really under Mr. Banton's exclusive tutelage that I learned to become a full-fledged designer. He knew how to make his stars look absolutely beautiful in his clothes. I studied how he created the signature looks for Paramount's three graces, Marlena, Dietrich, Carol Lombard, and La Belle Colbert. Oh, Claudette Colbert. She never liked me. She never really gave me a chance. She always treated me as Banton's assistant. I'd get so irritated when everyone thought she was so sweet, so nice. Oh, she really is such a... I much prefer the friendship of animals these days. Now, how's that sauce coming, Carrie?
It's a bit thick, but I think it's good. Let me check. 33 seconds left here. Okay, so I'm just gonna stir it. I might add a little extra chicken stock just to make it a little more.
Just a little bit, and a speck more butter, I think, would be always a good thing.
Okay, I can do that.
Do you have any animals, dear?
My landlord won't let me have an animal here, but I do have a black feral cat that's basically my cat at Hollywood Forever Cemetery, where I give tours. He follows me, and he's the closest I have to my own pet. And
oh, I love animals. My best friends are animals. I have two cats, Miguel and Minerva, Mickey and Minnie.
I love it. Okay,
they just won't catch any mice, that's for sure.
The alarm just now went off. So it says cook for 5 minutes. Now flavor with 3 tablespoons of sherry and pour this sauce over the hot chicken.
Yes.
So I've got some sherry right here. I'm going to pour it into the sauce. Give that a good stirring. Sherry seems to be a very common ingredient in a lot of these.
Right. The alcohol burns off. And then you just have the delicious flavor of the sherry. And again, like my margaritas, use the best sherry that you can afford, of course.
Okay. Well, here we go. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we have chicken Casa Ladera. Yay!
Beautiful. Beautiful. Sometimes I put it over a bed of rice. I often serve it with fresh peas, and the recipe has been adapted. Sometimes we saute chicken livers to go over it too. So it's a basic recipe that can be individualized depending on your taste.
Excellent.
Wonderful job. Are you going to take a bite?
I am going to take a bite. And while I am eating, I want to listen to you. So Edith, what was your first film?
Oh, my first assignment, I think it was a Cecil B. DeMille epic, and it was called The Wanderer. And I was to design the fruit and floral wreaths for the wrists and the ankles of the very beautiful leading elephant. No sooner was that voluptuous beast festoon than she began to devour the costume. I think it was the first time a star liked her clothes so much, she ate them.
Oh, wow.
Yes, everybody laughed. But really, how was I to know elephants eat fruits and flowers? I thought they only ate peanuts. I guess I would have laughed too had I not been so humiliated. I vowed never again to leave myself open to such ridicule. Now, how does it taste?
Oh my gosh, it's so good. Wow.
So good. Isn't it? You know, there's simple ingredients, but you use the best ingredients. You prepared it superbly, and the taste is divine. You know, I slowly, after elephants, I slowly graduated to horses. B, Westerns. I sketched my first human heroine. It was in a homespun button down the front dress. It was properly demure. I researched every detail down to the type of button that would be used. Now, when I showed the sketch to the director, he insisted that the dress be low neck. He said, Edith, you don't know the facts of life. If women hadn't worn low neck dresses, your mother and grandmother would never have been born, and neither would you. Early on, I learned a very valuable lesson. The most important person you have to please is the
director.
The director. I'm a costume designer. I'm not a battler. So my heroine not only wore a low neck dress across the plains, but she endured an Indian raid, fire, famine, blood, and a broken wagon axle without soiling her crisp white collar and cuffs.
And which star was this?
Really, well, I don't know, I worked on 30 or 40 films a year.
Oh, true.
I know, I mean, the pace was ridiculous, but oh, it was such a great training ground. My first real screen credit with the real stars was She Done Him Wrong in 1933. The stars were Archibald Leach, you know him as
Cary Grant.
Cary Grant, and Mae West. I think actually it was Mae's second film. Oh, I fell in love with Mae the first time I met her. It was 10 o'clock in the morning at her Hollywood apartment. She was the sexiest dame you ever saw at that hour of the day, or any hour of the day. She was wearing this white satin negligee. It was cut down to the navel, and her bosom was thrust out seductively. Now she turned toward me. Before I could even introduce myself to her, she said, "This is the Mae West look." And then Carrie, she dropped her negligee. Well, my assistants measured a full-bodied woman with perfect alabaster skin, 38, 24, 38. Some things you never forget. Now, Mae would say to me, "I want my clothes loose enough to prove I'm a lady, but tight enough to show them I'm a woman." And tight they were. There was not a costume in which you could lie, bend, or sit. So we improvised this reclining board. It was tilted at an angle, and there Mae would lean between takes in glittering splendor. But behind that silken slink, you'll appreciate this, it was the iron structure of a bright businesswoman with a bright businesswoman's fine mind. She was one of a kind. And it's hard to believe that she's gone, but I think that Mae died without a regret in the world. That's not an easy task. She gave me this other valuable bit of philosophy, which I love to share. When you find a magic that does something for you, honey, stick with it. Never change it. I found mine magic. I've stayed with it for nearly 60 years. The glasses are to see, the bun is for pencils, and the bangs, I happen to love. I really think that my hairstyle and dark glasses are as much a trademark for me as hats off a head of hopper. God, Carrie, why do I bring that woman up? I can't stand her.
I don't know either, but we'll just move on. Let's move on.
I mean, do you know that Hetty put me on the list of Hollywood's worst dressed women? She said, "How dare this fashion ingrate dress the world's most glamorous women when she herself looks as if her clothes come from the pages of a Sears Roebuck catalog." You know, when I'm standing behind a glamorous woman fitting a glamorous gown, I don't want to be the eye catcher. I'm always little Edie in the dark suit and dark glasses. I play down how chic I can be. I must make my magic on them. There really isn't anyone I can't make over. Oh, I did it for Barbara Stanwyck. Is she a favorite of yours?
Yes, and tell me about how you worked with Barbara Stanwyck.
Well, you know, she was a big star before I really got to her. Our film that we did, the first one, was The Lady Eve, written and directed by Preston Sturges. It really was a fashion film filled with furs and evening shoes and diamonds. It wasn't Barbara's usual plain Jane frumpy look. And the first fitting was for the love scene that she had with, you know, what the hell's his name?
Henry Fonda.
Henry what?
Henry Fonda.
Oh yeah, Jane's father, yes. Yeah, oh, it looked so divine in his dinner jacket. Well, this gown, it was a clinging, it was a black crepe, it was everything Barbara hated. She complained about it incessantly until she turned toward the mirror. She saw herself. She was stunned. And it was at that moment she fell in love with high fashion. And it was the beginning of a long and a happy relationship. I usually stay out of the private lives of my stars, but Barbara's a friend. She's one of my best friends, so I so enjoy her. I call her Missy. Do you know what she calls me?
What?
Jughead.
Why?
She always called me Jughead. Well, it's because I seldom smiled. Two of my front teeth never grew in, not the one smack in the middle on either side. It created this conspicuous gap. I always wanted to look like Shirley Temple with curls and dimples and a perfect smile. And there I was with straight hair, thick glasses, and a smile like a beaver. Well, Barbara, in her tenacious way, would try to do anything to get me to smile. Finally, she said, well, why don't you get your damn teeth fixed? People don't like people without teeth. So we're going to the dentist to get you some front teeth. She literally, Kelly, she yanked me into the car. Off we went to the dentist. And ironically, it was the same dentist that kept Shirley Temple's smile so perfect. So you see, I gave Barbara her glamorous looks, and she gave me my smile.
I love that story. It's a wonderful story.
Yes.
Edith, I noticed you have a very beautiful, eye-catching necklace. Can you tell us about the necklace?
Oh, aren't these beautiful? These are French and British theater passes for the aristocracy. They're like a season ticket. The name of the theater would be on there, the Drury Lane. They're over 300 years old. They're ivory. They're rimmed in gold. Elizabeth Taylor adores this necklace. She's offered me extravagant amounts of money for it. Anyone can have diamonds. No one can have this necklace except me. Now I'll let you and your guests in on a little secret. If you promise not to tell, do you
cross my heart and hope to die.
I left this necklace to Elizabeth in my will. Elizabeth, she was just 17 when she presented the first ever Best Costume Design Oscar. Did you know that for the first 21 years of the Academy Awards, there was no category for costume design?
Why do you think that was? What took them so long to recognize what an incredible art form?
Yeah, it was all the art firms, really. They bunched us together as technicians, and nothing wrong with technicians, but it's a whole different field. I worked tirelessly to get my profession recognized. And in 1949, the first ever Best Costume Design Oscar was to be presented. And of course, I was nominated. It was an extravagant period piece, The Emperor Waltz. Have you seen that film?
Yeah.
Turn of the century, Austria. I'll never forget that night. Aside from being the first Academy Awards with a costume design category, it was also snowing in Hollywood. And being a superstitious woman, I should have taken that snow as an omen, but I was too busy going over my acceptance speech. But I was quite certain I would win. I deserved it for longevity, if nothing else. Plus, my picture had the best costumes than any of the nominated films. And the only real competition was Dorothy Jenkins and Joan of Arc. But, oh, come on. Really? Ingrid Bergman's sackcloth and suits of armor winning over my Viennese finery. I wore a high neck, pencil slim, black file gown, and it was embroidered with little gold and silver elephants with their trunks turned up for good luck. My whole body tense when the young 17-year-old Elizabeth Taylor, she announced the nominees, and then she slowly opened the envelope and named the winner, Dorothy Jenkins for Joan of Arc. I'll tell you that was the biggest disappointment of my life, but I survived. And so did my affection for Elizabeth Taylor. We've remained very, very good friends. She often stays up at the house when she's between husbands. I have a sign over my guest room. Elizabeth Taylor sleeps here. You know, the first Academy Awards, it was at the Hotel Roosevelt, and it was 15 minutes. 15 statuettes were presented, and do you know what the cost of a ticket was?
I forget, but I know it wasn't much by our standards, you know.
$5. $5. Now, the first statuette, of course, you know, it was designed like a crusader with the sword, and on the film reel, there were 5 spokes for the original divisions at the Academy, actors and writers, directors, producers, and technicians. And for such a wonderful, wonderful man carrying so much influence, he's only 13.5 inches tall and only weighs 8.5 pounds. Then some people say, well, Edith, how could you win 2 Academy Awards in the same year, 1951? Well, there were 2 categories. It was for black and white and for color. Very different, very, very different design elements. In 1967, they merged. And then, of course, in 1953 was the first time that it was televised. And they hired me to be backstage. And I'd have my crash crew of women, because we were live, of course, and the censors were just breathing down our necks in other places. So I would have flowers, I'd have a piece of lace we could strategically put somewhere on a woman's body to protect her from being censored. So it is a very, very exciting time. This is my most recent Academy Award, 1974. It's interesting because that's the first time that a Best Costume Design Oscar was given to a film with no female star. The Sting. And it was also the same year I got my star on the Hollywood Boulevard, finally. Now I knew that the photographers could not get all of my 5 feet 1 1/4 inches in the same photograph with the star. So what I did, you would love this, Kelly, I whipped off my Gucci scarf, I knelt down and I polished that star, and I polished and I posed and I polished and I posed. Well, that photograph was picked up by the wire service. It was in every newspaper around the world. People accuse me of being a master of self-promotion. I am. And the studios adored it. I had my fashion shows, my magazine articles, art link letter show. I was syndicated on the radio right from the beginning.
Why is it if men are self-promoters, they're not criticized the way women are? That seems like such a double standard to me.
Well, as I told you, it was a boys' club, and women had to play the game better than any man ever had to do. You know, it's so interesting to me because, you know, long ago, when I first started, I realized I was not the greatest costume designer in the world. But there was no reason I couldn't be the most celebrated. Oh, I love this for the sting. You know, I would much rather work with men than with women. Just imagine dressing or undressing the two most handsome men in the world, Paul Newman and
Robert Redford.
Robert Redford. And then getting this. Oh, it's
doesn't get better than that.
No, it doesn't get any better than that, truly. But I'm hoping, even though I have my 8 Academy Awards, I am hoping that I will get one more. So I have a baseball team. I love baseball. Yes. So you have other questions, darling?
I do. Do you have a favorite director that you worked with?
Oh, I like to say my favorite director is always the director I'm currently working with. But with every director, you have a special kind of language. With Alfred Hitchcock, I don't even need words. I designed for all of the Hitchcock blondes. He borrowed me when we designed for Tippy in the Birds. That was a challenge. I mean, how do you construct a suit to hold up to all that pecking? And then, of course, Grace Kelly was the ultimate Hitchcock blonde. But there were challenges along the way with some of the stars that Hitch would select. You look like you would be interested in that one.
Yes, what are some of those challenges that you kind of had in designing these costumes? I would think you have stars' egos and self-esteem issues and preferences than what the director wants. And tell us about that.
That's why I consider myself a better diplomat than a designer. This was interesting because it was the film Vertigo. Mm-hmm. And it was the first time I worked with Kim Novak. So Kim came in and with a Hitchcock script, everything is detailed. From the color of each of the costumes to the feel, he really understands the psychology of costume design. So Kim comes in and she said, "Oh, Miss Head, I am so excited to work with you. I'll do anything, but I never wear gray." Well, you know the film, you know gray was a key element in the suit design. So she leaves, she's a lovely, lovely woman. I called Hitch. I said, "Hitch, we've got a challenge. Kim says she won't wear gray." Hitch says, "Work it out, Edith." So what I did, I took swatches. You know, there were all kinds of grays, pink grays or blue grays. And so I took all the swatches and I showed that to Kim on the next time we got together. Now, I didn't care which gray she picked, nor did Hitch. We cared about the silhouette of the suit. So I show it to her, she picks one, right? And the G word was never talked about. And that suit went on to become famous in cinematic history. I think it's back there behind me. You'll see Hitch in that, you know, it was stunning. It was absolutely stunning. And that's a fine example of a director's input into the type of costumes, because costumes always further the narrative of the film. And that's what's really, really important to do.
This has just been excellent, Edith. Why don't we check and see if people are asking us any questions? Sure. Or asking you questions, rather.
We'll show them a little dress. Do you see this? Can you see this dress?
Oh,
I designed
yes.
it for Elizabeth Taylor. She was presenting at the Academy Awards, and Richard had just given her, a small token of his affection. I think it was the first time I designed a dress to go around an accessory, albeit a 69-carat diamond accessory. I love that.
Did you ever, Benjamin in Germany is wanting to know if you ever tasted Marlena Dietrich's food.
No, I didn't taste Marlena Dietrich's food, but I would always, when she would come into town, I would always prepare a big cheese board for her. She loved cheeses, and I would only get the finest. But Marlena is she said, she's a perfectionist. And I loved working with her because she would come in crack of dawn with a steaming thermos of coffee dressed in sleek black leather pants. She and Roy Rogers are the only two human beings alive who should ever be allowed to wear such trousers. She would stand for 7.5 hours fitting a beaded dress. 3 fitters collapsed, but not Marlena. In that dress, it was magnificent, and the detail was just as Marlena wanted it.
Oh, that's a terrific story. Crystal Lawler is asking, what was it like to work with Grace Kelly?
With Grace Kelly, it was heaven. Absolute heaven to work with Grace. She was, people misunderstood. And here also, he treated her like a piece of Dresden china. But, Grace was such an intelligent young woman. She talked about everything. So she would seek refuge in my salon. She could kick off her shoes. She didn't have to be the beautiful Grace Kelly. She could be the Grace Kelly who was interested in every single detail of life. And we would have such fun together when we did To Catch a Thief. Have you seen that film? That's one of my absolute favorite films. I had an enormous budget. I had beautiful stars. We were on the Côte d'Azur of the south of France. And the gold dress, from the party scene.
Oh, yes. Oh.
With Hitch, he's such a prankster. When Grace came out in that dress, he said, there's hills in them are gold. That's Hitch. But Grace was the epitome of everything, and we remain close. Whenever she's in town, she always stops by to visit. And in fact, when the princesses, Caroline and Stephanie, when they became of curtsying age, I gifted them with their first pairs of tiny white gloves in tribute to their mother's charming tradition.
Wow. Mary Stanford is wanting to know, is it true that you added strategic padding to Mae West's gowns to ensure that she was voluptuous in the right places?
Well, we would add undergarments for the voluptuousness, so it would hold it always up into the most appreciated places. But she didn't necessarily wear a bra. We would have stays in there that would hold everything in. And, she was a small, still is a small woman. We'd have these shoes that were built up that made her look taller. And that's why she used the walking stick for balance. But she kept her skin. The day she died, her skin was just as pure and alabaster-like. Wonderful, wonderful one.
Deb Grieve wants to know, who was the most difficult star you've ever had to work with? I'm guessing Claudette Colbert, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh, you seem to be a very good guesser. But, really, I've had very, very few problems with any of my stars because I involve them with me. And I love what Lucille Ball said. I'm very discreet. And Lucy knows this. And she said, Edie knows all of our secrets, but she never tells.
That's a great policy to have. Barbara Boyd Doss is asking, which stars would you invite to your ideal dinner party?
Oh, Cary Grant was always always up at the house, and we loved having Carrie. And Bill loved having Vincent Minnelli, as did I. We had little Eliza even came up to the party, but these were the intelligentsia of Hollywood. Always we would have, well, if she was staying at the house, Elizabeth Taylor. And when Elizabeth was in residence, forget the casual, we always had to have enough caviar that was probably most people's salary in a year. But it was a wide variety of people, and that's what makes life so interesting. That if you take the time to listen, the tapestry of human involvement, it's wonderful, it's wonderful.
I had another question from Benjamin in Germany. Did you feel sorry for Gloria Swanson not winning the Oscar for Sunset Boulevard?
Well, of course. And did you realize that I wasn't even nominated for an Academy Award for Sunset Boulevard? Yeah, the film was up for 11 Academy Awards. And with the costuming that I did, but you know what? I didn't give a damn because the picture was that good. You know, we filmed on the same back lot where Gloria had starred in all of those films, those DeMille pictures of the 20s. And you know, I was just a wardrobe girl then. When she came back after her marriage, her royal marriage, we all had roses. And when a car pulled into the back lot, we would all throw the roses. And, you know, the first time I met Gloria was in Billy Wilder's office, and I was a little nervous because Gloria's a living legend, and I was a relative newcomer. I mean, I dressed a good number of stars by then. It wasn't until several months later that I realized and learned that Gloria had requested me.
No higher compliment than that.
Absolutely. Because, you know, every studio would have its own designers, and sometimes we were loaned out to other studios. That's why you'll see shared Academy Awards, like for All About Eve. Betty Davis had required that I be her designer, so we shared the Academy Award with Charles Lemaire, who was at 20th Century Fox. He designed all the other ladies, but I designed all of Betty's. You had a question, dear?
I did. I heard a rumor, I want you to confirm or deny, that when Sunset Boulevard first screened for certain people in the industry, that Barbara Stanwyck, your close friend, was so thrilled and enthralled by that film that she got down on the floor and kissed the hem of your dress. Is that true?
Kissed the hem of Gloria's dress.
Ooh. Not
mine. I was sitting right next to Missy. I looked, it was a stunned silence when the film finished screening, and the screen went black, and it was silent, and there was this thunderous applause. I looked over at Missy, she had tears streaming down her cheeks. And then she knelt down, and she kissed Gloria's skirt in reverence.
Wow. That must have been quite a moment to behold.
Absolutely. But you know, Barbara and I are still great friends. We often go out on the town. Can you see?
Yes.
Yes. Let's see. Yeah. I'm not sure if I designed that dress. I designed mine for sure.
And you did design personal wardrobes for many stars too, right? Yeah. Not just what they wore on film.
You know, there were no stylists. If a star under contract to the studio was going out to make an appearance, they would come down to us, and we would dress them. So I did personal wardrobe for Mary Martin. I did Sophia, what's her name? The Italian girl with
Sophia Loren.
Sophia Loren. And I did personal wardrobe for Betty Davis too. So many stars would come to me and also to the other studio designers.
All right, let's see if we have time for one more question here. Well, people are loving this, so that's really good. Let's see. Okay, so I would ask you one final question here, and it's a big one, perhaps. But is there any regrets that you have had? Any ones that got away in your career?
Well, unlike Mae West, who died without a regret in the world, I have a couple. I would say never dressing Marilyn Monroe. Never had the opportunity. And that was a heartbreak. And I would say never designing the uniforms for the Chicago Cubbies. Love that team. And ever since Bill passed away, being alone, you know, it is much easier being remembered than trying to remember. I think it was Betty Davis who said, "Old age ain't for sissies." Oh, Carrie, I don't know if I will be remembered as Hollywood's most endearing costume designer, but oh, I sure as hell have been her most enduring. And I just love having these conversations. You know, next I'm going to have a conversation with the stylish people in Tucson, Arizona, where I actually filmed Life and Times of Judge Roy Bean. So it's a wonderful community in Tucson. And then we're going to Solana Beach in North San Diego. Tucson will be March 9th through 13th. And Solana Beach, that's going to be March 21st and 22nd. And I actually, in San Diego, right in La Jolla, I started my teaching at the Bishop School. So it's wonderful to have these conversations and to be able to share memories and, well, tasty food like you have prepared. I'm sure everybody will want to have chicken Casa Ladera.
Yes, this is really good. This one is definitely in the win column, Miss Head. This is delicious, and I cannot wait to hand deliver some to a friend later today.
Thank you, dear.
Well,
it's been a pleasure, absolute pleasure to spend time with you.
Well, you too, Miss Head. I know that you have an extraordinarily demanding work schedule and personal appearance schedule, so I'm extremely grateful that you took the time out to visit Hollywood Kitchen, to share your culinary expertise and your extraordinary life and career with all of us.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure and an absolute privilege. And what a delicious time we have had.
Yes, we have. And thank you to all of you who've continued to watch, even supported me on the Patreon and elsewhere. I'm so grateful. And please stay tuned for more food, fun, and film history from Hollywood Kitchen.
Thank you. Bye, Carrie.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.